What's up, fight fans? Welcome to my channel. This is Johnny, and in today's video we're going to be going over last night's fight card that took place here in Sydney, Australia at the Kudos Bank Arena, headlined by George Kambosos and late replacement Jake Wyllie. Guys, in this video we're going to be going over the 4 fights that we broke down all last week, the 4 fights that we did analysis on, and I gave you my fight predictions. I'm going to talk about, was I right, was I wrong, and do a little bit of how each fight played out and what to expect for the winners. Before I continue, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been with me since day one. The channel is growing, so I also want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. If you haven't already, could you please remember to hit the subscribe button? My YouTube analytics tell me that 80% of you guys who watch my content haven't hit that button yet. Also, please like this video, as well as hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified every time I put something out that's new. All right, guys, the fight had more than 4 fights, but I'm only a one-man show, so in this card I talked about and broke down and predicted the light heavyweight fight between Kataev versus the tough, gritty Argentinian Derval Palacio. We then broke down 2 ladies fights, both of them were for world titles. The one was the rematch of Sugar Neeks, Shernika Johnson, and Nina Hughes. The second one was the co-main between the world champion Sky Nicholson and the American challenger Tierra Brown. And then finally, we broke down the main event, which was between George Kambosos and Jake Wyllie. To get started, let's talk about that very first fight. So if you watched last week, I kind of, on all these fights, was right and wrong. I was right on all of them and wrong on one of them, and I'll explain what I mean. The light heavyweight showdown between 9-0, 9 knockouts, Imam Kataev, they were comparing him to Artur Beterbiev, came in and fought against road-tested Argentinian gritty fighter Derval Palacio. And if you watch this fight, this was my favorite fight of the night. It had everything. Now, we know how it went down. We know it ended with the Russian remaining undefeated. The Chechen fighter is now 10-0, but it's the first time he ever went the distance, and it's the first time that he ever won a fight by decision. I had him winning almost every round. It was one of those fights, just because the scorecards were wide, it was still a really fun and entertaining fight because of the styles. The Argentinian was a zombie. He did get dropped once, but he was in the fight the entire time. Like I said, he wasn't winning rounds, but his pressure and his gritty and durability allowed him to be in the fight up until the closing bell. There were things that, from the winner, that I like to see him work on, especially his defense. Now, he has this awkward style. I told you about it earlier last week, how he kind of keeps his hands down and he throws sort of his hooks from his side. But I did my research and I was trying to see maybe he actually hurt his right hand, because to me, his right hand was by his hip the entire time. And by the mid to late rounds, he wasn't even guarding up. He was taking shots with the head, using his head as his defense. So Kataev, he's young in his pro career. He has a lot to work on. We always talk about keep the ball moving forward, and that's what he did. And he remains undefeated. He's now 10-0 with 9 knockouts. The next fight that we featured was a championship title fight and a rematch between 2 fighters who fought each other last year around 10 months ago. The Brit Nina Hughes and the Aussie Shernika Johnson. And Sugar Neeks retained her title. This was a tale of 2 different fights, if you ask me. We broke down the first fight, and it was highly competitive. This was the one in which the ring announcer Dan Hennessy last year called out the wrong winner and then had to go back in and bring the fighters back in and realize that he read the scorecards wrong. And when this fight got signed as a rematch, Shernika Johnson said the only reason this is a rematch is because the announcer messed up, and she was quite frustrated. And from round 1, the first bell on, you could see a fighter in Johnson who wanted to put on a show. This, in my opinion, of all the fights I've seen from her, this was the best she's looked. The 30-year-old looked at the top of her game, and you could see in her opponent, the 42-year-old Hughes, she looked her age. She looked flat-footed. She didn't have any pop on her shots, and she was frustrated the whole time. She had a point deducted, and the thing is, when you watch Shernika Johnson and a lot of the ladies, they clash in with the heads. And if you wonder why a lot of lady fights end up with headbutts and scars and cuts, it's because a lot of them aren't that experienced in boxing, knowing the space, timing, and distance, so they come crashing in head first. You see this a lot in the amateurs, and then as a fighter prolongs and goes on through their career from the amateur to pro, you see it less and less. It still happens, but what was happening is Shernika Johnson was headbutting Nina Hughes. Hughes was getting frustrated. Shernika also does some, dirty boxing in the clinch. She likes to grab and hold, but it was Hughes that was getting yelled at by the ref. And look, I don't know who that ref is, and I don't really like bagging on refs, but that guy, I'd be happy if I didn't see him ref again. He was yelling at Nina Hughes and not seeing what was really happening, and that was affecting her from the third round onwards. I'm not making any excuses and not taking anything away from Shernika Johnson. She boxed beautifully, but I'm more bringing that up because it was almost like a comedy of errors on the side of Hughes. She has that going against her. She was definitely flat. By the third round, her corner is talking about her kids, trying to inspire her, which is never a good sign. The 6th round starts. They said, we're going to give you one more round before we stop it. And sure enough, the 7th round starts around midway through the 7th. Nina Hughes' corner throws the towel in, and Shernika Johnson keeps her belt and still. Moving forward, the next fight was the co-main. This was the one that had everyone excited about. If you look at the analytics on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram, and the TikTok. By the way, I started a TikTok a month ago. It's Johnny Says Boxing. They're a bunch of shorts. So randomly, if you're on TikTok, and dude, I'm 42 years old, turning 43. This is all new to me. So if you're on there, you want to follow us, Johnny Says Boxing on TikTok, rock and roll. But everyone was excited about this fight. I've watched it twice. I watched it once last night because I was at a wedding about 2 hours from here on my phone watching it during the reception. And then I just sat down earlier right now and watched it. And guys, I got to be honest with you. I would not have been upset if Sky would have kept her belt. And I'm super excited and super happy for Tiara Brown. You guys follow my channel. You'll know that I'll admit when I'm wrong. I picked Sky to win this fight. I said in the breakdown that Sky, to win, she was going to have to fight her fight. She was going to have to use the whole ring, which she does really well, counterbox, and use those nice boxing skills to beat Brown. But nobody expected, I know Tiara's fans expected her, but I didn't, actually execute a gorgeous game plan and force Sky from about the 4th to 5th round onwards to fight Tiara's fight, and that's exactly what we saw. And Nicholson stayed in the pocket. She went against her coach's demand. She went against her game plan. You saw pockets of her exiting and then popping from the outside, but for the most part, from the 5th round onward, she stayed in the pocket, and she's tough. Both girls are super tough, and like I said, I've watched it twice. So many rounds were extremely close. They say you got to take a champion's belt from them, and I don't know if Tiara Brown did enough to win the fight. I'm not calling it a robbery. Like I said, she did win the fight. She is the new champion, but it was a very close fight. I expect those two ladies to rematch, and I'll definitely be tuning in. So far on the fight card, guys, I picked Kataev to win, but I picked him to win by knockout. He won by decision. I lost that fight. Second one, I picked Shernika Johnson to win by decision. Sure enough, the corner stops it. Lost that fight. This fight was the only true blue one that I lost because I went against the Ann New, and I picked Ann Still, and we lost that fight. And in the main event, we had George Kambosos versus late replacement Jake Wyllie. This was a fun fight, guys. Early in the fight, you got to see George's class. You got to see his world-class experience versus the young 24-year-old Queenslander in terms of his speed, how he's able to enter and exit the pocket. With a seasoned veteran who has world title experience, who's been a world champion, against a guy who's just coming up, you could see that gap. There's moments in a fight and little areas in the exchanges where you see a guy who knows what they're doing, they've been there before, versus a guy who's learning on the go. And nothing against Wyllie, super tough, tough as nails. This was another one I picked George to win, but I picked him to win by knockout, and it went all 12. So in a way, I lost that one as well. It was a rough night for me on my betting. I went 0 for 4. But anyway, Kambosos wins the fight. Afterwards, I found it really interesting that Eddie Hearn said that Kambosos versus Richardson Hitchens next. So you guys got to remember, this is George's first fight at 140. He's obviously at 31 years old, still hungry to become a world champion. It's a new division, a fresh start for him, you know, after the losses to Haney twice and Lomachenko, and a lot of people say he lost to Maxey. But now at 140, he's 1-0, and it looks like he just set himself up for a world title fight against Richardson Hitchens at 140. Eddie said it was going to happen in June, and Eddie said he was so impressed with Wyllie, he gave him a contract at Matchroom, and I think fans are expecting to see Wyllie on the undercard of George versus Hitchens. So that's going to be exciting. And I just loved George's lead hook last night. His speed was exactly where you wanted it to be, and his aggression was there. And you saw as the fight went on, though, the longer a fight goes on, guys, the harder it is to knock somebody out in any division. at any level. So you gotta get, usually after like the 6th or 7th round, fighters will settle into the fight and they almost come to like a gentleman's agreement to, you know, I don't want to say back off or not go for it, but understand that neither one of them could get the other one out of there. And that's how that fight eventually ended up playing out. I want to know how you guys did. When I have my wins, I talk about my wins, and when I have my losses, I talk about my losses. But you guys know that's not the intention of my channel. I tell you guys the betting and the predictions because about a year ago, you asked me to start doing the predictions, but that's mostly the fun bit of the channel. My intention of my channel is to cover boxing and to cover fighters from a non-opinionated approach and to create the healthy conversation, win or lose, agree or disagree, but keep it healthy and keep it copacetic. And that's exactly what we're building here on the channel. And I just want to thank you guys for it. Stay tuned to the channel tomorrow because the card in Vegas just took place, just wrapped up, headlined by Seb Fundora. And I just want to let you know, I did a little bit better on those picks, and that fight card had its own controversy. Stay tuned to the channel tomorrow, and we'll be releasing that video.